tell us about your early years in Upper Waterford?
Well, that's a long time ago. But my mother evidently was interested in the Wallaces had 2 children who they had adopted, and Frank Wallace was one of those children, and he's the one that she had been divorced from her first husband and married Frank Wallace. That's how we got connected with the Wallace family. And I'm sure that I lived there very early. Probably I was 2 to 3 years old, because I have a picture of myself going into the church there in Upper Waterford. And we lived at the Wallace farm, and the Wallaces at that time were getting a little older, and I'm sure that my mother was probably a big help to them at the time, because I can remember when Mr. Wallace had, well, I guess today you would call it dementia or whatever, but he got lost in the woods and got hung up on a barbed wire fence. And they eventually found him, of course. And he was not in very good condition, but I can't remember just how long it was. He died not too long after that, and I just remember my mother being there for him and for the family.
So was that Frank Wallace that you're speaking of?
Yes. I lived there at the Wallace farm with my mother and stepfather. Went to the Upper Waterford school up until I was probably 10 years old.
How did they heat back then? Did you all heat with wood, or?
Oh yes, they did. Yeah, as far as I can remember, that wood was what we used for heat.
How about refrigeration?
I just remember, like I had mentioned earlier today, the big blocks of ice. I mean, they were big, that they would cut from the river. And we had an ice chest that you put the block of ice in, and it would have pans underneath for the dripping. But that was your refrigerator, and it seemed to work pretty well.
So in a village like that, was there somebody that kind of had an ice house that sold ice to the other residents, or how did that work?
That part I can't really remember. I just remember them having the ice, and I don't know whether there was, or somebody just shared it, because one block would last quite a while. A large block of ice.
What did they have for neighborhood family gatherings back then? Did you have a lot of social?
They had a lot. I wish that we had. I'm sorry?
A lot of social stuff?
Yes, they did. Yeah. I think I mentioned in the article that I have there. We had a lot of parties at the school. I remember they had the square dances. They would have those quite often, and they had Halloween parties and Christmas parties. And the church in Lower Waterford, I just remember wonderful Christmas parties in the vestry there. Your dad used to get the big Christmas tree, and it was just so great to get that present off the tree, because back then we didn't have all the presents that kids get today. It was a totally different thing. But anyway, we did have a lot of gatherings.
At the church and all? Do they have gatherings at the little school in Waterford, the one that still exists?
I don't remember them in the school there. I remember them in the vestry
Right.
at the church. Yeah. We would have.
Did electricity come to Upper Waterford while you were still there?
I'm sorry.
Electricity?
Electricity. I don't think so. I mean, I was pretty young when I was there, but I don't recall. I just remember the lamps, and I don't think it did. I'm not sure about that, but I don't think we had it.
Where did your food come from? There was a little store, and if you farmed, you probably made some of your own food, either livestock or gardens.
Well, people didn't run to the store every time they needed something. And when you went to the grocery store, it wasn't the self-service that we have now. It was going up to the counter and telling the grocer what your list was, and he would go and get your items. And, but I think they probably did most of their grocery shopping in Littleton or St. Johnsbury. And then the country stores would have had, a certain amount, but I'm not sure. I just remember, all the good food that we had.
What kind of store was the store your grand?
It would be like a country store.
With the candy counter?
Candy counter. They had the candy counter. And
They have processed crackers?
yeah. Oh yes, I remember the cross crackers. Yeah, the round crackers were so good in oyster stew.
Were you ever in the store that my grandparents had?
Yes, I was. I've seen your grandfather, your grandfather, William Morrison. Yeah, I've seen him whittle away on the wood and the wonderful things that he would make. Yes, I remember that.
Where was that store?
The building behind the church. It's now that big yellow house, but it used to
Lower
be a
Waterford.
small. Yes. Because she was just down the road on the bullock place at that point.
If they do today, they still keep busy going here and there.
I kind of skipped over the Depression years. You wouldn't have been very old, but do you have particular memories of how the family managed during the Depression?
I remember them talking about it. I was pretty young, but I do remember them talking about it, and I remember my mother making something she called a depression plant. It was in a bowl, and she used coal as a base. And I'm not sure what the other things were that she poured in there, but then it would start growing. It'd be different colors, and it would fill the bowl. It was called a depression plant. And I just remember that people were having hard times. And I remember them talking about Franklin Roosevelt and all the different plans he had.
WPA and
Yeah,
CCC.
right, yeah. One thing I do remember is that they called them gypsies. They would travel around and stay wherever they could. They would I don't know why they called them that, but I just remember one day I was coming home from school. This is in Upper Waterford. I would have been like 8 years old, maybe. And I was like 3/4 of the way home, and I heard a vehicle coming. These people would go and they would stay in people's barns, they would do all kinds of different things. And I was afraid of them. And I heard a vehicle coming, and so I dashed up onto the side of the road and hid behind a bush until they had gone by. After they'd gone by, I, of course, made my way home, but I had heard so many things about them that I didn't want them picking me up. Actually.
By the time you were born, the village probably was in its wane because of the plans for the dam,
Yeah, they were already.
already losing land or losing places.
Yeah, they had already bought up property, I think, and yes, I remember a large sign where the Wallace farm was. It was on a corner, and right there at the corner, there was a large sign that told about what was coming, the development of the. It didn't say Moore Dam. It was the New England Power Company, I think, or whatever, that would be developing there. So I believe that where the bank goes across the dam, where the bank goes across that on the Vermont side is where the farm was. Of course, it's all built up there, but you know, there's a road along the river that goes up.
Now this, you referred to your Wallace
Yeah,
farm,
right.
under the earth fill, okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the power company, or even what preceded that, was buying places, did they immediately destroy them, or did they rent them out?
No, they people lived in their homes for some time after, because it was in the 20s, I think. They started buying them up, and it was in the 30s when I would have been there. I believe there could have been some of them that, you know, immediately, but as I remember, I just remember the families being able to live in their homes until the time that they would. I'm not a poet. I just, when you get older and you can't do all the things that you used to do, you know, and you like to keep your mind active. I just one day thought, I'm going to try writing a poem because I have a granddaughter, Trisha, who is very good at it. And so I started and I kept on writing till I had about 40 or 50 poems, I guess.
It's wonderful. Geneva let us read one that you had written.
Oh, the one for the
90-year-old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, wonderful poem. Then there's a wonderful one in here.
Oh, right.
And I'm referring to the North Star of November 2016. I'm going to show this. It takes a village with Pat Powers on the cover. And a lovely article written by her. Who was it, your granddaughter?
Trisha, yes.
By her grand.
The memories that I have were all good memories, and I don't really know what their feeling was, but I can imagine that it was a hard thing for them to give up their homes, and I don't imagine that they got a lot for their properties. So I'm sure that it was difficult. There were some really good farms. The Pike Farm, Leon Johnson had a nice little dairy farm. Of course, the Wallaces, but as they grew older, they gave up on theirs. But I'm sure it was not easy.